Hi, everybody, and good evening here from the Temple of Silence in Luoma, Finland, not too far from Helsinki. And we are now dealing with our 79th program here in the Dissipation of Glamour initiative, and we're also reading through the book, Glamour, A World Problem, and I think it's our 19th academic reading. So I want to thank you all for attending, and as I tried to do in the beginning, I can only really do it once, just to welcome you, Alexandra, Anne-Marie, Annette, Antoinette, Barbara, Bianca, Deborah, Gregory, Jan, Joan, John, Karen, another Karen Gritzer, Karen Johansson, okay, also Keith, LaValle, Laurie, Margot, Martha Mickelson, Michael, Nienke, Stephen, Susan, Tuya, and Zenaidi. And here we have BL and okay. Let's see. Are you hearing me?
I can hear, but it breaks.
Is this breaking up, Joe and BL, or is it okay? Can you tell?
It sounds okay to me, Michael.
Is it breaking though? Is it breaking?
I don't hear a breaking, no.
Okay.
No, I don't.
Okay, no, I know. Tuya is telling me it's better. I just want to wear this big white thing on my head right now. So, okay. All right. You get a cheap pair of headphones and maybe you get what you pay for here. Anyway, let's just have a little alignment that we're all coming together for a purpose, and that purpose is to offer ourselves as an instrument for the dissipation of glamour. There's so much of it, and the counterforce tries to use this glamour to stop our apprehension of truth. And there's so much lying going on in the political field and in general in public discourse and so forth. So it prevents us from deciding wisely about many issues. So we will work with continuing with the work of the glamour of personality. It's only because we do identify as personalities that we tend to try to protect this instrument, which we are not really. We are not this instrument. And we protect it and we lie, misrepresent the truth accordingly. So if we identify it as the soul, the onlooker, the observer, if we could raise ourselves to responsiveness to the soul and have the mind held steady in the light, then the light of truth could illuminate our minds. So that's our purpose as we work with glamour, to make it possible for the light of truth to enter, and all of the distortions and exaggerations and minimizations and misleading kinds of desires, that all of these subside. That's our purpose. We'll sound one Om just to confirm this idea. we've got the big map in front of us, it goes all the way to the Solar Logos and deals with the personnel of the hierarchy, and it deals with the 7 spirits before the throne, and it deals with 3 great subsidiary logoi that are like the Buddhas of activity when compared to the Solar Logos, just as the Buddhas of activity are to Sanat Kumara. It's an amazing map, and somehow we're all in it. And even down here, people on the probationary path are included within this circle of hierarchy. So somehow we're being included in this group, which really begins by representing the 5th kingdom of nature and goes on to the 6th and the 7th kingdoms. And so we have to be aware of the kind of system in which we are playing our tiny part. Okay, we're going to go on to our academic reading, and I'll tell you what, Joe and BL, if I am breaking up, please let me know, because then I can switch to my really heavy headset, which apparently does not break up. So just let me know, and maybe for some people I am breaking up, and for others I'm not. I don't know. Anyway, I'm just conducting an experiment here. So this is the beginning of the academic reading, number 19, and it's our 79th meeting. And the Tibetan has just closed with a prayer for us, kind of. We've been asking ourselves certain questions. Am I suffering primarily from glamour or illusion? Do I know what it is in my nature that facilitates my tuning in on world glamour? Because we all have certain faults that facilitate our tuning in on either glamour or illusion, or perhaps Maya. And have I reached the point where I can recognize the particular form that my dweller on the threshold takes? And we're really not finished with the dweller in any significant way until the 4th initiation, and strangely, DK even mentions it in relation to the 5th. We'll get to that point of the dweller and the angel somehow merging. But this is a factor, and the more powerful and skillful we become as personalities, the greater the possibility that our dweller may present an obstruction at the portal of initiation. Because, in a way, the dweller is simply, once it is refined, the powers of the personality on the 3rd aspect, which do not necessarily want to go along with the will of the soul. So the Tibetan ends with a kind of a prayer here, that you may indeed, as individuals and also as a group, learn the meaning of true self-knowledge. That's the big self, and so learn to stand in spiritual being, within the radiance of the soul, of the triad, of the monad, let us say, increasingly free from glamour and illusion, is the prayer of your friend and brother who has fought his way through to a greater measure of light. And that is, of course, Master DK, and he calls himself a friend. And we have to remember that hierarchy is considered to be friendship in its truest sense. So you can kind of imagine that the sign Aquarius is very much the sign of the creative hierarchy at this time, and it's also in many ways a sign of friendship within the context of the group. So maybe we are entering a stage over the next centuries where humanity will learn what it's like to be a true friend to other human beings. Maybe we don't really know that entirely yet. Now, he starts to speak here of certain of his group members. And this is, remember, these are groups of 9 people. And there are always 3 in a central triangle. Now, somehow I have to find that diagram, which is the diagram of the groups of 9. And everyone in the central triangle relates to 2 other people. And so it's 3 in the center, plus 2, plus 2, plus 2, it's 9. And basically 4 great triangles are created in this diagram. So it was an experiment, and it lasted from about 1931 until toward the end of 1939, when it became so clear that war was breaking out, and that new demands would be placed upon the masters, that Master DK, did he lighten his load? I cannot really say. But what he did was stop the experiment with the groups of 9 people, and then go to a new and reorganized seed group of 24 people, which is the number of Shambhala, interestingly, 2 and 4, and which represents the 6 of the monad when you add it together. And this 24, interestingly enough, in the days ahead, when one day we are members of what's called an advanced school for training, and it's generally training for the 3rd degree, I would say, then we'll notice that in these schools, 24 students are to be found. It's a very powerful number, and it has a lot to do with our solar logos, the 2 and the 4. As a matter of fact, if I were to look at how the 2 and the 4 fit together with respect to our solar logos, at the moment, I think his lesser monadic ray is the 4th ray. But as eventually all monadic rays of attribute must resolve onto one of the rays of aspect, it will be a 2, because he is a heart center in a cosmic logos. So the numbers 2 and 4 also represent our own solar logos in a way which is developing. Well, there was a lot of trouble in this particular group. The trained observers, they were called, and the chakras activated for them were the head center, the heart center, and the solar plexus center, the same as in the New World religion. And they fell victim to glamour. They each had a pretty strong 6th ray because they needed that to work in such a group. And they may have entered very confidently, but glamour is a sneaky kind of thing. And it assails you, and you don't realize what's really happening until it's too late, and you've been chasing after vain imaginings for too long and wasting your life on those false pursuits. So this is actually quite a big number. During the past 6 months, he says, 4 members of this group of students have been fighting glamour in their own individual lives, and for the most part successfully. So meaning they were sufficiently aware to fight with some degree of success. I wonder, does he a little later mention who they are? I make reference to this because in an experimental group such as this, it is well to anticipate such a situation. Now, hierarchy is Uranian in that respect. It is always conducting experiments and trying out human beings to see how well they will be able to carry on the next step forward. And, lately, at least when DK was writing, the results have not been especially encouraging, at least at that time, he said. So I make reference to this because in an experimental group such as this, it is well to anticipate such a situation. Now, while we're talking about this, see whether you have the sense that you are wrestling with any particular type of glamour. Because such wrestling will naturally occur. It's like the ladder into heaven, and Jacob is wrestling with the angel. I guess in a way Jacob is the embodiment of the very powerful personality which the angel seeks to subdue to its own purposes and to the purposes of the plan, you might say. So, and I remember too reading a book by Jeffrey Hodson where he said that he talked about the weapons that are used by the different ray types, and I don't know, maybe the sword was involved with the first ray, but I do remember something about the wrestling grip having to do with the second ray. And, others came into the act. Fourth ray is totally loaded with the panoply of war and learns how to use all these weapons. In case we just think the fourth ray is a nice, harmonious ray, it's really a very warring sort of ray, as humanity seems to demonstrate at this time before reaching a real harmony. Earlier what did it say here? Okay, such wrestling will naturally occur because only that which is experimentally known. Now just pay attention to this one, because this is such a statement. Only that which is experimentally known, and I might even say experientially known, becomes a true content of the equipment of the disciple. Now sometimes Tuya and I talk about this, and she refers to something called the gluon mind, or the glue mind, something of that nature, and has a lot to do with the fact that thought forms adhere to the mind of some investigators, but they don't mean anything, they're just thought. They're not experimentally wrought out, and they're not experientially wrought out, and so they're not really part of our equipment. They're just sort of, glued onto our mental presentation. And we need to change theory into fact. Earlier, I referred to the fact that part of the plan of the hierarchy embraces the starting of small groups, such as the one which would have the definite objective of providing the active means whereby the world glamour, today so potent and deep, can be dissipated. Somewhere along here he says, well, we haven't been very successful with these small groups. They could have been better. Now, the way it worked in the Second World War was that it appeared that Germany was the source of glamour, Italy of illusion, and Japan was the source of Maya. And this is, on an international scale. So it's really interesting to see how these different liabilities can work out in different people, but also in different nations. Now, I would say at the moment that the United States is engaged in a war against glamour, and since it has a sixth-ray personality, that there's a significant number of sixth-ray souls in the United States who are representing the forces of glamour, which see in a distorted manner and not at all broadly. They have a narrow vision. And then there are more grown-up souls, we might say, more along the second-ray line, who have a much excuse me, wider point of view. And it's a Gemini fight, and let's see how it comes out. Gemini is a second-ray sign, and maybe there's some hope for that. So hierarchy tried to start and continues to try to start small groups, such as this one, which would have the definite objective of dissipating glamour. Okay, now, going on and taking a look at where humanity really is today and the timing of things. See, unless we have good timing coming under the third ray, coming under Saturn and quite a bit of the seventh ray, we're not going to be successful in manifesting the divine plan. We're not going to be successful because we'll do the wrong thing at the wrong time in the wrong place with the wrong people. You know, this is what Master Moria referred to as the castle of errors. And he says, at last, these errors have to stop. You know, out of timing, you know, and that's one of the major factors about illusion, as we're going to see. Poor timing in the expression of certain ideas. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong clothing of the idea. You know, we just get it wrong. And then it's not successful in bringing through the divine plan. Anyway, he says here that the time has not yet come for dealing with the world illusion on a large scale. Maybe on a small scale is possible. So always watch his qualifiers, okay? The adjective large. Maybe on a small scale, some illusion can be dealt with among the disciples of the world. For the race is not adequately mental. You know, the moon chain group, which is the mental, very much the mental group, represents maybe 15% of humanity. They have their own problems, you know, being so subject to the third ray and all of its inadequate expression. But anyway, the race is not yet adequately mental, nor has illusion, and here's a definition for us, which is, as I have stated, preeminently the result of the misinterpretation of ideas, nor has illusion reached its height, and therefore glamour is a much more critical factor in the misbehavior of humanity. But you know, you get a good idea from the Buddhic plane, let's say, a real truth, but you don't know how to handle it. And so you misinterpret it in terms of what you know, you misrepresent it, you clothe it in thought matter which is inappropriate to the nature of the idea. And that happens on the abstract mental plane, and it happens on the concrete mental plane. So before you know it, the idea is distorted. And it's not really an idea whose time has come, one of the most powerful things in the world. But it's been distorted on the way down, because our magical process just is not adequate to interpret it correctly. So anyway, that's one of those really good definitions of what illusion is, and you know, for a change, it's quite a simple definition. We look for certain simplicities here because otherwise Master DK and Alice Bailey, you know, are very demanding mentally. But just because a thing is simple doesn't mean it's not demanding mentally. The misinterpretation of ideas, through relating these ideas to wrongly conceived thoughts. So it's not enough to have a good idea coming intuitively. If you really want to be of help, we have to clothe the idea properly. But the hour has struck for the first steps. On the other hand, and notice first steps, lest we get too over-enthusiastic, but the hour has struck for the first steps to be taken in the dissipation of glamour. And the hold of glamour upon the race should be appreciably lessened in the future. Well, that's good, and that's what we want. We do have to remember that DK warned us about the man who swept his house clean of, was it 40 devils or something like that, but then, doesn't say so, but he neglected the daily house cleaning, and before you know it, he had a whole lot more devils in his house than he started with. So we're living in a period when Master DK tells us that may be the case. We're living in a period when the infestation through glamour may be even worse than it was before, because we just haven't kept up with that internal emotional prophylaxis, the cleaning that is necessary. So anyway, but he gives us the possibility that it will be dissipated in the future, and we can begin now, even though the major battle against glamour cannot yet occur until quite a bit has been done to cleanse the etheric planes. We begin by driving the evil back onto the astral plane. And there's that place called Marakara, the place of Mara. And Mara is the illusion, glamour, and all the distortions that the Buddha fought against. And so we have not yet made our full onslaught against the place of Marakara, which is the home of the Black Lodge on our systemic astral plane. Anyway, but there is hope here, hence the practical training now being given in this group, in their own lives. Hence also the intended teaching, later to be given to the group, if they measure up to the opportunity, which will enable them to aid in the concerted and planned attack on world glamour. Now, I guess we can, all the way from the cosmic astral plane, this attack is occurring. I always forget the name of the second path. It's always slipping my mind, and magnetic work. And from that high place on the cosmic astral plane, our normal systemic astral plane is constantly being cleansed. So there's a great service being wielded by those high initiates who have chosen the path of magnetic work leading to the cosmic astral plane. And interestingly, many of them, says the Tibetan, are fifth-ray monads. Fifth-ray people, fifth-ray monads, who are leading this substitution of pure love on the astral plane and the dissipation of falsity and distortion. So anyway, maybe we can help, maybe we can aid in this concerted and planned attack upon the world glamour. So now here's another one of those injunctions, and the question is, are we doing it? Wrestle, therefore, with your personal problems along these lines. We have personal problems along many lines, okay? But wrestle with your personal problems along these lines, your distortions of the truth, which prevent you from seeing life as it is. We all have to do this. So wrestle, my brothers, with your personal problems along these lines, for in this way you will gain facility in discernment, in clear, precise action, and in strengthened understanding. And doesn't this kind of tell us, if we look at this closely, we see here, whoa, that's not correct. Something happened there. Okay, let's see if I can do this correctly. Sorry. Looks like I just put in a huge cut and paste that didn't belong there. So, almost ready, and hopefully have not entirely lost my train of thought. Okay. So, we need, these are three factors which help in the dissipation of glamour. Okay, and obviously I'm going to put that in blue because it's not what Master DK has said, but it's something for us to consider. Okay, so discernment, spiritual discernment is found in the egoic lotus, on the third level of the egoic lotus, the third subplane. Precise action sounds like the fifth ray. And in strengthened understanding, the application of love and wisdom. Three factors which will help in the dissipation of glamour. So in this process of dissipating glamour, the way of the greatest potency is to realize the necessity to act purely as a channel for the energy of the soul. And this is, well, I think you said it elsewhere, this is more than translucence. This is transparency. And he says, you know, one of our big jobs is to learn how to get out of the way of the inner light and love and power that are trying to manifest by being transparent like a sheet of clear glass. So, you know, and he says he really advises this. So to act purely as a channel for the energy of the soul and not block it with all kinds of convoluted thought forms and with many distortions in our desire life. If the disciple can make right alignment, you know, it all begins with alignment and it ends with alignment. And if you want to see a meditation called the Acme of Alignment, you go into Discipleship in the New Age, Volume 2, and there the third meditation will be called the Acme of Alignment. And it begins in the high places, descends into the bottom of the personality, as it were, and ends in the monad. If the disciple can make right alignment and consequent contact with his soul, at least as a beginning, the results show as increased light, because the soul is light. It's the light of consciousness. The light pours down and irradiates not only the mind, but the brain consciousness as well, right? Soul, mind, brain, and hopefully the astral body, as the usual distorter, is not playing that particular kind of role, but has been purified and tranquilized as we approach the second initiation. He sees the situation more clearly. He realizes the facts of the case as against his vain imaginings, and so the light from within himself shines upon his way. He is not yet able to see truly in the larger sweeps of consciousness. That's what initiation is all about, to be able to do that. The group glamour and, of course, the world glamour remain to him as yet a binding, and I might say blinding, a binding and bewildering mystery, lost in the forest. But his own immediate way begins to clear, and he stands relatively free from the fog of his ancient and distorting miasmas. Now, who even knew that we had such things? But when we read Master DK, we begin to suspect that we've led quite a life of distortion in the thousands of incarnations since early Atlantean times, when everybody probably was in incarnation except for a very few that came in the 5th root race. So alignment, here's the key, alignment, contact with his soul, and then steadfastness are the keynotes to success. So just think about those terms. Alignment, contact with the soul every day, all the time, as much as possible, and steadfastness. That, how interesting that, there's a key word called steadfastness, and you know the ray to which it refers. It is the 4th ray. It is humanity's ray to which the word steadfastness refers. So we have to hold that point of tension. And if our point of tension is focused at a sufficient intensity and elevation, it will automatically begin to clear away the miasmas, the clouds, the vapors, the veils, whatever you want to call it, that distorts the truth. Okay, so let's say that this is the end. I've got too much, I'm sorry. I've got to do something here to get rid of my, all right, let's see if I can do this. So this is the end of Dissipation of Glamour Initiative number 79, and academic reading number 19. And today we're in the energy of the sign, almost into the Leo now. We're at the end of the Cancerian sign, and today is the 20th of July, and Dissipation of Glamour. Okay. Academic reading. Now, the next thing we do, let's see, I think that Tuya and I are planning, because we have people coming here from other countries and we'll be working with them in the Blue Rose Sisterhood, we have the possibility that next week we won't have the standard type of webinar, we will have a meditation. And it might not be, as I say, a webinar, it might be a broadcast. We're working very hard on clarifying our broadcast potentials. There's been some issues with servers, which are very, arcane issues to the non-technical people, and they just change things on you, and suddenly what was working before is not working again. But we have an expert computer person in the house right now seeking to make sure that our broadcasts proceed without breaks and so forth. So it may be a broadcast rather than a webinar, and we will let you know on that through constant contact from the student union and the various media and so forth. So now we're going to have here the beginning of Dissipation of Glamour. I'll keep the same title, number 80, and no academic reading. And it will be on the 27th. And it'll be, I think, the morning of the 27th. And that's the full moon, isn't it? Tuya, is that you?
Yes, I am here.
Okay, yeah.
Yes,
so
that is the full moon.
It is the full moon. What time is the full moon? I really should know this.
8:20 p.m. GMT.
1 a.m.?
8:20 p.m. GMT.
Oh, okay. Well, then that's okay. Then we can still do our morning thing, meditation. The meditation simply on glamour, and we'll just discuss whether this is going to be a broadcast without discussion. It will probably be without discussion, but we'll decide whether it will be a webinar or a broadcast, and you'll be notified. You know, in a broadcast, you just receive what happens, and there's no discussion, but in a webinar, we can discuss. Okay.
Michael.
Yes, Tuya.
Can I I would just like to add to this that next week we have very full schedule, and we are going to broadcast as much as we can. We talk very intensively about initiations in several aspects. Of course, we have been doing this throughout the many years, but still we will continue, and we will let you know. And I know that the schedule here in Finland and the time zones are different, so but they are going to be then also recorded. But just for everybody to realize that we will have this kind of coming week very intensive.
And what I think if we cannot successfully broadcast this to you in real time, we will have the videos for you, so you can participate in that way. So we still have a few things to figure out over the next couple of days, but we will include you as much as possible, and if you would like to be included. I mean, there are these compilations and initiations, and if you go to YouTube right now, you will find fairly extensive compilations with commentary on Initiation 1, Initiation 2, Initiation 3. And you say, well, okay, I did those already. But you're never done. We are never done with that kind of information, because our task is to transform what is theoretical into what is real for us. And that is no easy thing, so repetition has its place, and always new insights will enter if we are careful in our thoughts as we repeat. And it's not all repetition at all. And we'll see whether we go on to the 4th and 5th initiations. We'll see. They may not be exactly relevant to us, but they're very interesting. And you will find, if you go to Makara and you look at the videos for the second part of the book, the rays and the initiations, there's a lot of commentary on the various initiations all the way up to the 9th initiation, which is kind of like the ceiling of initiations, C-E-I-L-I-N-G, as far as we are concerned. Obviously, it just keeps going and going, but that's the top for us and takes us away from the cosmic physical plane, as the solar angels have already done. Those who are now solar angels have left the cosmic physical plane and have returned to serve. Okay, so anyway, there's a lot to learn, and we hope that you will be with us for the various broadcasts and webinars. Now, it is time. You can ask a question. You can make a statement. You can discuss anything in occultism if you wish. Because as I tried to say this morning at the Science of Triangles webinar, that no matter where you begin in the field of occultism, you can always relate whatever is said to everything else that is presented. It's a great sphere of illumined knowledge, and it doesn't make any difference where you begin. You can reach some place that is relevant to you, relevant to humanity, relevant to the progress of our planet. Okay, I have here, there is a question. Okay, it wasn't breaking for you. Good, good. Video part only showing the pre-start screen. Whoops. Oh, okay. I don't know why, John, but that happened. Good day. Video is only showing the pre-start screen. But Joe and BL, everybody is seeing, are they not?
Yes, he fixed it. He fixed it. If you,
Oh, okay, I didn't go down far enough. Okay, well, John's a handy guy. Okay, so fixed, my C. Okay, very good. Glad you're here. Thank you. And thanks for the alert. All right, friends, now your thoughts, your questions, anything that we might discuss with you. Right. We're willing to give it a try, you know. Who knows what one knows? Tuya, did you want to say something at this point, dear?
Yes, I was just thinking about this the evolution of the senses and how much it is related also to glamour, dissipating glamour. Thinking about that, how meditation is important as a tool for all of us when we want anything go further within us, and these stages of the senses within us. If we do not have substance, which is not enough pure, because the senses are related so strongly to atomic plane, and all the initiation is for that we are gaining more atomic power within us. So and thinking about this, so much talked, what we have been talking about, the false news, this habit in humanity to use lies, and whenever one is using lies, then there is all direct relationship to the senses, so that the senses will be cluttered, or they will be misty or foggy. So how to bring clarity within oneself is via the meditation and practice the truth.
Exactly. The practice of the truth. The practice of the truth. It leads to clairvoyance. It always struck me. You know that Madame Blavatsky worked with the initiate DK before he became a master, and he was probably a 4th degree initiate, and he was a young man in Tibet. And Blavatsky said of him, "I know a youth so pure that no lie would ever escape his lips." And I was very somehow moved by that, and because I think DK tells us, and I think in Agni Yoga we are told, if we tell the truth, we will see the truth. If we think the truth, we will see internally. It's one of the means of developing true clairvoyance instead of illusory clairvoyance. Now, wow, there's a lot of lying going on these days, and it's all just to protect personality desire. And by the way, here, Tuya and everybody, you see here, this is the chart of the senses and their higher and lower correspondences. You can see down here that we have hearing, touch, sight, taste, and smell, and all of these higher correspondences. Keith Bailey from AUM put this all together, and it's a very useful chart, so we appreciate that he did that, and we try to understand the higher correspondences. Let's just say, if you turn to your cosmic fire around 188, right in there, you're going to see the way DK relates these various senses. And of course, they are means to determine the truth, if they are clean. And therefore, we are, all of us, involved in something or other. Now, I would say that we are involved a lot right here. Discrimination between soul and personality, spiritual discernment, so that you always see the spiritual fact, regardless of all of the stuff that's swirling around you. You can look right through it and you can see what's behind it. Response to group vibration is we learn to function in the Aquarian way according to love, wisdom, and our identity is with the group. And spiritual telepathy, on the abstract atomic level, we learn how to receive impression concerning the divine plan, and on and on and on, very high senses, so high that he really has to stop at the atmic plane, because the senses as they exist up here just, it's just beyond us. He's not even going to mention what they are. So turn to that chart, or whatever, and you can use it, or page 188 or thereabouts in Cosmic Fire. You can use that to get the correspondences, according to analogy, of the physical senses as they appear on higher planes. Okay, anything else to you?
Yeah, I was just thinking while you were pointing out to this, where we are so-called ending, that it looks like that there ends then the broken of the earlier solar system, and from the atmic plane the second plane on, we move into the present solar system, program of the second present solar system.
I think it's kind of true because the last solar system was Brahma, and the 5 lower planes, Atma, Buddhi, Manas, emotional and physical, are Brahmic planes. And as I mentioned, the number 5 is Brahmic. Now, once you get to 7, we're dealing with the present solar systems and true esotericism. So maybe nothing like them existed in the previous solar system. We didn't even know how many planes there were. Maybe the people who became solar angels escaped onto the cosmic astral plane after fulfilling 5 Brahmic planes. It's certainly possible. And maybe in the next solar system, we're not going to escape onto the cosmic astral plane until we have fulfilled 9 Shivic planes related to Shiva. You know, the numbers are 5, 7, and 9. Right now, we're in 7, but eventually it will be in the next solar system, number 9. So, yes, it's very possible that the previous solar system dealt with these matters. Now, the way I've always thought about this is that you have the dense physical body of the planetary logos consisting of the lower 18 subplanes. You have the dense physical body of the solar logos consisting of the lower 21 subplanes. And all of that pertains to the previous solar system. So sometimes when I look at the cosmic ethers here, I've said, okay, when you escape onto the cosmic ethers, onto the Buddhic plane of the 4th initiation, then in a way you're really getting with the program of our present solar system. But equally you could argue that when you reach the monadic level, that's when you are getting into the program of our real present second ray Vishnu solar system. Okay. Other thoughts, friends? Other thoughts, questions, whatever you want to talk about. Because as I say, everything leads to everything else, and everything is related to everything else, and reciprocally. Okay? Okay, so Alex, please go ahead. Alexandra.
Oh, hello.
Hi.
Yes, hi. Now, I just wrote in the chat box that there is posted in the chat box a link to and quotes from Obama's speech on truth and love.
Wow. Okay.
It's there. I think you can see it. Can you?
Yeah, probably.
In the chat box.
Yeah, there it is.
Joe posted it.
No one is born hating another person. People must learn to hate, and if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love, because love comes more naturally to the human heart. Jeez, this is
very inspiring.
It's moving. Let's see that as our North Star. Let's make that truth manifest on earth. I mean, it takes my breath away to hear a man who was president speaking in this way, compared to how many in politics are speaking today. So that's great. I guess what was he doing? Sort of celebrating Nelson Mandela's. Mm-hmm. You know, obviously a real member of hierarchy in a certain way, and this is wonderful. So thank you, and Olivia helped provide this thing, and I guess he was called Mandiba, or what is it? Madiba. Yeah. Mandela. Mm-hmm. Oh, well, it's the battle.
It's worth hearing. There's a link to the whole talk, and it tells you where to go to.
Excellent. Gosh, I'll tell you what. Let's just, I don't know, it makes me want to copy the whole thing, you know. It's so beautiful. That's what I'm going to do, if you don't mind. Just make it easy on us here. I would make it bigger. Well, it's okay. Obviously, there's a lot going on here. South Africa, right? Okay. So let's see what I can do if I just kind of insert that. Well, look, friends, there's no question the the battle is on, you know. The battle is on. And, and you know, as Master DK said, well, look, maybe it can be fought out on the psychological plane. Maybe it doesn't have to precipitate as World War III, because the consequences could be utterly disastrous for humanity. Utterly disastrous. So disastrous that humanity as we know it could be wiped out, and a whole new attempt engaged to raise up a humanity who could really live according to divine plan and divine purpose. So the stakes are very high, and you as a disciple, you, all of us as aspirants, all of us as disciples, all of us knowing a little something about the inner life, have a big responsibility during the coming years of this century, when the recrudescing sixth ray and Pisces are still with us, okay, until the end of the century and basically the year 2117. 2025 will be very important in terms of laying the plans for the reappearance of the Christ and the externalization. But don't think that the fight is over. It just can't be. As long as we have vestigial, the remains of the recrudescing sixth ray, meaning it's getting more and more powerful as a last-ditch hurrah, you know, and the end of the Piscean note, which is very antithetical, the negative part of it, very antithetical to what's trying to happen in Aquarian times. So basically, we're all going to be tested. We're going to be tested tremendously according to how much we can take, and if we rise to the occasion, then it's going to be a lot better for humanity than if we avoid our responsibility, and there's so many different ways of doing it, you know. So let's just be serious about what faces us in this incarnation, and, you know, and very probably in our next incarnation, which will very probably be before the sixth ray or Pisces is completely sort of vanishing from the scene, fading out of the scene. Right. Okay. What else? Anne, okay. Alexandra, you said what you want to say, right, I think, or have you? Oh, okay, in this case. Anyway, thank you. And here is Anne, and let's see what's, okay. The 3, okay. The 3 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 group, it seems, as he constructed the symbol of the monad with the way the group was formed. Rotating triangles in one major rotating triangle. It's a very interesting idea. You know, 3 central, 6 peripheral. And by the way, those people, you know, I'd try to go looking for that diagram. Somewhere on this computer, in the depths of the computer, is that diagram. And anybody who has it, just please come up with it, and I'll make you the presenter, and you can show the diagram. But right now it's just in my head. You know, the triangle is there in the middle, and then at each apex, another triangle, and another triangle, you know, so you kind of see what it's all about. And that was considered to be a real symbol of responsibility, because the 3 people in the center were like the 3 great lords, and each one of them was responsible not only to the central triangle, but to the triangle for which they were the point. So, you know, always we're going to be dealing with peers, with our equals and so forth, and we're going to be dealing with people who can learn from us. And as well, of course, if you look at the central point in all of that business, we're dealing with the great teacher from whom we all have to learn. Just like in the Deva Kingdom, you command some devas, you cooperate with other devas, and you obey still other devas. So very interesting. And, you know, is it monadic? In a way, the number 9 is a monadic number because it represents completion. And it's the monad that finally takes the 9 initiations. As a matter of fact, if you really look at it, the monad is what is taking all the initiations. Basically, only it's called the personality, it's called the soul, it's called the triad, but finally, and in the last analysis, it is the monad. Okay, so Anne, did you want to say anything?
No, this picture came to me when I was looking histories on Cosmic Fire, and it came to me again, as you said, that these groups was formed three central, and each one with other two people. So that means there are three triangles within a major triangle, which, as you say, probably they are rotating, which means no one person takes the place. If there is a problem with one person, the whole triangle can rotate, and the other person can take the place and the energy and keep the energy going.
Yes, and the master is at the center of the whole thing. The master is the 13th or the 10th point in this particular case. From another point of view, he is the 13th point. So, you know, it's the new way of organization, and there are spheres of responsibility. This is a term that Mary Bailey was always using in the office when I was there. You know, she tried to describe what hierarchy was in terms of spheres of responsibility. So, you know, it doesn't hurt for us when we're organizing our various groups to study various things to organize a group of 9. At the same time, I would never get hung up on the numbers only. Because if you have, you know, 3 or 4 or 5 people that really want to study, don't say we can't do it until we reach 9, you know. I've seen people become so fastidious about the ideal numbers that they pass opportunity by. So, you know, but God geometrizes, and the second ray Lord is called the Grand Geometrician, something like that. And that looking for the geometry of life is extremely important, and you find it everywhere, especially in this second ray solar system. Okay, well, thank you, Anne.
Thank you. I will also be sending you a quote from Master H, which is the 5th ray master, about what he believes that the master is. I'm just sending it to you now.
The master, Master Hilarion. Well, you know, this is he dictated what's called the Book of Revelation. He wrote the book Light on the Path through his his kind of representative Mabel Collins, who was a theosophist. He is working on the Buddhic plane of all things. His work is to train psychics scientifically. And that is so important because so many psychics are going off the track, you know, because they don't have the necessary scientific training. So let's see what it says here. The quote from Master H, a master is one who has become as a little child who has entered the eye of the triangle, okay, in the square, within the 7, okay, and who by sore travail of soul, that sounds like him, has won his robe of immortality, which robe he must keep unspotted, not for fear of the spotting, but lest the mud thrown against that robe rebound and strike the thrower. Yeah, from what book is this, Anne?
It's the Teachings of the Temple.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's, what is it, Eleanor Ledoux's or something? She, the author. Francis something, yeah, Ledoux's or something. Yeah, okay, well, that's considered, you know, a fairly, I mean, a valuable book. And the small book written by him is really, it's really militant, as DK says, that militant little treatise. Now, is it true that the Master Hilarion has the 5th ray monad, but ultimately the 1st ray monad? It seems to be the case. So it's really bristling with the 1st ray and the 6th ray also, that little book called Light on the Path. Yeah. Okay, anyway, thank you. Now let's see what else we have here. Is this from Jan? At this point of many changes, rising tensions and conflict, I notice how the irritation is so connected to timing. When I think about irritation, Master Moria calls it imperil. Okay. And he says it's so concrete that it precipitates against the inner walls of the nerve channels and creates a great deal of trouble there. There are times when resolution is not ready to come into form because of the timing. Okay. The soul knows the timing, and if we are focused as the soul, we'll know a lot more about the timing. The soul brings the comfort of discernment of whether experience can be effected or not, as timing is conducive or not. Okay. Just my own thought right now, and yeah, okay. Great, Chan. Timing, you know, this is so interesting. The third ray. Let's look at it this way. The Lord of Space, the dispenser of time. If I'm to look in this little book here called Esoteric Psychology 1, and let's see if I can get that. Yeah, and I don't know, I'll just go to this page. Why not? I'll try this page. Something like that. The Lord of Death. Okay, I'm right there into the first ray. But here comes the third ray. And here it is, the Lord of Space, dispenser of time. And the whole thing about the divine plan is its effectiveness as its timing is understood. Because it's all about energies, and the distinction between energies in the great tapestry of deity and the application at the right time of these energies and in the right amount. So the third ray is very much the ruler of the divine plan, which is dependent upon the application of energies at the right time and in the right location, which leads us to the Lord of Space. So let's see what else you have here. I just want to make sure that we're doing this the right way. Yes, okay, so look, we begin with our own little lives, right? And we try to somehow work out, using the seventh ray as well, when we can apply certain energies to their greatest effect. When and to what degree and in what amount we can apply the energies to work out some tiny aspect of the divine plan in our own lives. So, you know, if you come to the next conference in Phoenix in the end of April, you know, and beginning of May, we are working particularly with the third ray and with the illumination and application or illumination of the divine plan and its manifestation. We're working with that because we're all of us supposed to be, like John the Baptist, forerunners of the light. And that's what this conference is called. And how do we really forerun the light? Because the hierarchy is coming, the Christ is coming. How are we as a group, John the Baptist, putting our knowledge to the best effect through right timing and right application? Yeah. So anyway, but we are the soul, you know, and the more we identify as that mixture of monadic presence along with solar angelic enhancement, the more we will see the divine plan directly and be able to administer the divine plan in our own lives. A thought. So thank you for your thought. Okay. And right. And Karen, okay, could I repeat that? Well, this is something Tu and I have often talked about. You know, we command those devas who are virtually on the level of elementals, and they have to obey. We cooperate with other devas, command and cooperate, who can really only be invited into our processes just the way a human being would be. And they in their own stage are equivalent in consciousness to us. But there are great devas, the Raja Deva lords and their assistants and so forth, who are so far advanced that all we do, we obey them. So we command, we cooperate, we obey. And we just have to discern which is which and at what time. Okay? I hope that's, I mean, sometimes those little triplicities or whatever help us and, you know, cement in our own mind a certain process. In this case, command, cooperate, obey. Right. Okay, Karen. Let's see. Am I okay now? Let's see. Michael and then Tuya. Michael. Hold on. There you go. Go ahead, Michael.
Hello, Michael.
Hi.
Yeah. Talking about truth.
Yep.
It brings to mind from long time ago some of the songs or portions of the songs from the rock opera Jesus Christ Superstar, where whoever it is or was talking about truth. Is truth unchanging law? Are my truths the same as your truths? That kind of thing. And as disciples, what are our truths? And the truths that we know to be true, how much are they colored by our own glamours and illusions?
Yeah. Well, you know, jesting Pilate. What is truth, said jesting Pilate. But I think, in my view, there's only one eye that sees truth as it is. And it's on the dollar bill of, you know, American currency. And it's the all-seeing eye. This has the absolute, completed point of view, the complete perspective. Now, that doesn't mean that there are not many echelons of truth. The higher you rise in a point of tension, the more and deeper your vision can take in, the more truth one sees. Many sincere people think they're seeing the truth. They're seeing a higher truth than they had before, and they're lessening their illusion a little bit. You know, they're seeing something in a higher way, but is it the absolute truth? Well, even the all-seeing eye is of the universal logos is only seeing a relative truth, but complete truth with respect to this universe. Now, you know, you go beyond that, and probably the only truth there ultimately is the absolute itself. But, you know, not to carry it too far, we need to rise into ever more refined perceptions of the archetype that guides our lives, and that can be considered to be an improvement in our vision of the truth. I don't think any of us should ever claim that we are seeing the truth complete and fully. At least it's my opinion on the matter.
Yeah, we need to be careful in the truth that we know from our limited vision, that we don't become so devoted to impose it upon others.
Well, there you go. That's a big sixth-ray glamour, isn't it? You know, in other words, the narrow point of view, that narrow and fixed mind sees something, and for that seer, it's as high as they can go, but they just assume it's as high as anyone can go. And then comes the imposition and all the terror of that, you know. Like, okay, you don't see things the way I do, I'll kill you, get out of my country, I eject you, all that kind of thing. And it's been operating for a long time during this six-ray age. So we have to be, as you say, very careful. And when we are so convinced that we see the truth of the matter, we should pause and realize it is a relative truth. It may be as high as we can go, but who's to say that some other and higher point of view does not reveal more of the truth, in which our little truth is just a partial aspect. Our DK does talk about that too.
Yeah, and so as we work to dissipate glamour and dispel illusion, we are working to extract the beam from our own eyes so that we can help others with the little speck in theirs.
Yeah, that's it. And we should always, in a way, kind of suspect ourselves, or at least examine ourselves very carefully and clearly, lest we become the victim of our own enthusiasm about a partial point of view. But I guess, sadder but wiser, you kind of go along and you see the necessity of it after having imposed for quite a while.
And we do what we can.
Yeah, that's it. And I always think that what you say is true there, and how much can we? Now, DK says, look, you think you're all working from a point of tension, but you're not. Your points of tension are really points of extension, and they're scattered all, through your personality. So you think you're doing all you can, but in fact, you could do more. So it's always the noble middle path, not to get so hysterical about it that we criticize everything we do, and not to become so lax that we fall into complacency and saying, well, I'm doing as much as I can. There's always that middle path to tread. Anyway, experience will help us, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Tuya, please go ahead. Yeah, go.
Just a short note to that continuation to your discussion about the truth, and how it is really also related to right memory, which is one of the spokes of the noble eight. How did he say? Eightfold Path. Yes. But my one question was to you, Michael. Another day you were mentioning how in the brain we so what was that quotation?
Well, I wish I could find the quotation right now. I have been doing some work on the astral plane in a treatise on white magic, and it says the brain has the tendency to see things upside down and to reverse the truth, and distort through reversal. Now, I just don't know if I could get lucky. Sometimes, and I might get lucky, and let's see, I could try this, brain reverse. And it says...
Michael, this is exactly when we think about this, that brain has that tendency. And this one investigation, what I was long time ago, I was already telling that they were making a research of people, a group of people was this kind of testing group, whom were told purposefully lie. So they saw something, and then those scientists, they started to build up the lie. So they realized that already in this first try, when this kind of false was showered on them, their perspective for that, even though they saw that in there, and they were the witnesses in that occasion, already then the memory were switched, and they didn't anymore remember correctly how it was. And then after third time, when it was repeated, it was like a fact. So that's why thinking about this horror of this false news.
Yes, that's right. And every manipulator knows. Here it is. I got it. Every manipulator knows that tell a big lie and tell it often. Just keep repeating. It's the Joseph Goebbels method. Okay, tell it big and keep on repeating it. And it is, a terrible thing to watch, because that is happening before our eyes. Distortion repeated until it's hammered in, and people cannot discriminate the truth from what is impressed upon them through repetition. So here's the statement on page 221 of White Magic, and it's in the battleground of the astral plane, Rule 7. It is interesting to note, for this is in itself an instance of the effect of the astral plane upon the human brain, which in its uninformed condition reverses the reality and sees things in an upside-down state. So there we have it, and, it goes on to describe it. So, go into that section of your White Magic book, 221, and ponder this reversal that occurs when people don't have a trained mind, and when the brain is in the uninformed condition. Yeah, that was the one to you. Okay, now let's take...
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, let's see if there's anything else, folks. Anything else? I hope I'm doing it correctly. And yes, I've looked here. And right. What could be the formed condition, you ask Anne, of the astral? Well, there is a kind of interesting thing. I'm going ahead with these commentaries on the astral plane and the rules for magic for the astral plane, and it talks about certain great forms that we always have to deal with. Now, the forms of the astral plane are very fluid and interblending, and they are confusing and quite illusory. But at the same time, the masters have worked to plant certain helpful forms on the astral plane, and they seem to abide and give the proper kind of guidance. So basically, we want to bring the astral body into rapport with the love petals of the soul, with the higher aspects of the soul that represent a higher nature of love, and finally with the Buddhic plane, with which the astral has a immediate rapport through the planet Neptune, and finally even through the monadic plane, which has the same numbers as the astral plane, 2 and 6, 6 and 2, depending on how you count. So the real solarization of the astral plane, so that it carries that great quality of love which comes through from the monad, comes later when we have the Maya Virupa, and you have a true master or a Chohan projecting a will-created body, and through the astral body flows this great love and wisdom of the monad. But it's enough for us already to begin to get the love of the soul flowing through the astral body, and if we are successful in taking the second initiation and eliminating a great number of the glamours, then we will have a much improved condition of the astral body, and the forms there will be forms of love and right relationship, and not these fluidic, distorted, chaotic, and difficultly blending forms. Okay. Okay, John, we've got here one principle I'd like to make sure I take into consideration before creating conclusions is to not err with contempt prior to proper investigation, yet to see all evidence from the multiple sides of any one issue. Yeah, of course, and many people who have not, as they say, studied the subject are filled with contempt for the subject they have not studied. Now, I'm reminded of this old story. A lot of you know it. These were scientists in the 17th century. One was Sir Isaac Newton, and the other, his name was Halley, and I forget his first name. Was it John Halley? I'm not sure. Anyway, Halley is the astronomer who discovered Halley's Comet. So he was naturally interested in astronomy. And he said to Newton, he said, what is all this nonsense around you, Newton, this astrology that you are promoting? What is this? And Newton said to him, something that fits very well with what you've just said. Sir, I have studied the subject. You have not. And so there's the contempt prior to proper study. And I often say to very intelligent people who despise and reject astrology simply because they can't conceive of how a piece of dirt out there in the sky can affect us, whatever, that they study the subject, study the human being, study the appearance of the human being, study what happens to the human being during certain cycles, and all of that. And I'm convinced that a fair-minded study will lead to the road of accepting the astrological conclusions. Maybe you've heard of he's now deceased, but the French statistician Michel Gauquelin, who, as a statistician, he was just going to go out there with his numbers, crunch them, and prove that astrology was a bunch of nonsense. And he became, because he believed the numbers, quite a convert to astrology, because the numbers spoke through certain rising planets. Mars rising in the 12th house, athletes, Jupiter and politicians, the moon, authors and poets, and Saturn, scientists, and so forth. He just saw it with his own eyes. The numbers spoke to him. So we must not have contempt, as you say, before proper investigation. And of course, that investigation can go on for quite a while as you try to study things from various angles. Thanks, John, for your thought on that. Okay. Now, have I missed anybody, Joe or BL? Have I missed anybody? And if not, it may be at time to move on and do our meditation. I just, I don't know. Yeah, where are we? Are we pretty good? Yeah. Looks like we have everybody, and I don't know, Tuya's so busy here because of the event that we have coming up, but I don't know, Tuya, if you're there, do you want to do this meditation?
I could, but I have these little cats here, and they are really wild. I think it's better you do that.
Okay. We now have five pets, who are running the house, I think. 3 Chihuahuas and 2 blue Russian cats, which are mixed with some other pedigree cat, and they're wonderful, but they do require attention. So this is our service to the third kingdom, or maybe it's their service to us, I don't know. But we're learning. And it's so interesting. The dogs have the second ray and the sixth ray, or maybe the second sub-ray of the general sixth ray. The cats, completely different rays. The third ray and the fourth ray. And then to see them kind of mix and to see the way the cats use their hands as you would expect, and how they get kind of polarized the way the fourth ray does in either direction. It's a real study in the rays in the lower kingdoms. So anyway, we're having fun, and it requires attention. Okay. All right, then let's have a little meditation, everybody. And thank you for your thoughts and your comments. I hope I've answered to everybody more or less in what you have said. Remember 221 here about the upside downness of the brain relative to the untrained mind, and well, do we really see things clearly? A lot of people see things upside down. It's a danger. Okay, so here we go. So we'll begin by having some little silence among us. So that really works towards the coherence of the group. Now, we remember that this work is, well, I just have to say it's dangerous work, that's all. And people who are unwary are overcome. So, let's use the protective formula. And we'll touch the center of the forehead, the chest, the left eye, the right eye. And see that cross of divinity irradiating as you create it. As a soul, I work in light, and darkness cannot touch me. I take my stand within the light. I work, and from that point, I never move. And through each one of us, that radiating cross, and through the entire group, and protecting the entire group with the light, we see the group cross. Now, feel that radiation. It will actually connect us with the soul. And we're going to focus the triple light, raising the light of matter to the normal mental level. This is vitality. We're going to raise we don't have to raise it, it's the light of the lower mind, the reasoning mind, helping us discern through logic and reason and observation and comparison and all those qualities of the normal mind. Two are together. The vitality of matter and the light and reasoning and logic of the lower mind. Two are together. And then we will visualize soul contact, somewhere above the head perhaps, and the recognition of and maybe the feeling of soul light. And we bring that soul light down to blend with the other two lights. The fusion of the two lesser lights with the light of the soul, we visualize this. Three as one, a triple light. And then with that sense of the triple light, which has soul light, the light of reason, and the vital light of matter, we say together, followed by the sacred word, the light is one, and in that light shall we see light. This is the light that turns the darkness into day. So each one of us has this triple light, which is now one light, and the group as a whole has this triple light. As we begin to use the formula, and as we say the words, we visualize a great searchlight turning its light upon the astral plane. So this greater beam of light, it detects glamour and it dissipates glamour. It does both. The beam of light coming in away from the group ajna center and from the ajna center of all those who are creating it. So the formula: radiance are we and power. We stand forever with our hands stretched out, linking the heavens and the earth, the inner world of meaning and the subtle world of glamour. We reach into the light and bring it down to meet the need. We reach into the silent place and bring from thence the gift of understanding. Thus, with the light, we work and turn the darkness into day. And now we say together, visualizing the power of the spiritual will, strengthening our beam, which reveals and destroys. And so we say together, imagining the effect: with power upon its beam, the light is focused on the goal. Now, we're still working with this most misleading glamour, to which all fall victim at some time, but even powerful people, and that's the more dangerous, the glamour of personality. So let's think for a moment of what have been the effects in the world of humanity of the glamour of personality. What has been the result? That this glamour exists. And we use now these words of power. having understood something about where this glamour takes humanity and how it takes humanity away from the truth, from the larger picture. So we say together, the power of our united light prevents the appearance of the glamour of personality. The power of our united light negates the quality of the glamour of personality from affecting humanity. The power of our united light destroys the life behind the glamour of personality. Now remember, this glamour has not even hit its strongest expression yet. And DK warns us of a very dangerous period when it does. So, in the silence, and for 5 minutes, we visualize the light penetrating into the glamour and producing its weakening and its dissipation. 5 minutes of silence and intensity of purpose. And so we have focused our revelatory beam, and the beam which helps us dissipate and rid the astral plane of the distortions which occur when people just can't take their eyes off their personal self. And DK tells us always to do this, you know, so that things can be seen in just proportion. And so together we withdraw our beam from the astral plane imaginatively and onto the mental plane and into the triple light, shutting off the beam, the triple light of soul, of mind, and of the vitality of matter is there. And as we work on our own individual glamours, we become more fit to do this kind of work, which would improve the condition of humanity. So, we'll sound the Om 3 times, recognizing that together we have done a little piece of work to bring us closer to the truth. Okay, friends, thank you for being with us here. You know, and Olivia, Tuya, and I, we invite you every week to participate, you know, and sometimes it happens that we cannot hold the session, but we do so as much as we can. Tomorrow, we work with the Soul of Nations. There's been so much happening this week regarding what is really the soul of nations and what may not be at all. One day the United States, the United Kingdom, and Russia are meant to have such a cooperative, interactive relationship that it really, really helps humanity, but we have a lot to see and a lot to live through before that is really the case. So, you know, we've been providing you with these programs, and I'm kind of putting them up on YouTube, and also my colleagues are helping put them up on Makara. Just advise people that they are there if they want to listen to the video and participate in the video. So, thank you very much, and okay, and let's see if okay. Anything, Tuya, that you would like to say?
Yes, just welcome everybody next week to be with us if we manage to broadcast them, and wishing for everybody very fruitful and meaningful full moon time, because next week we have the full moon.
Right, right. Exactly. And we're doing everything we can, as I say, to overcome these server problems which have kind of arisen, very arcane reasons why they arise, the ending of contracts, all kinds of things that go on. So anyway, we're doing our best to bring to you without interruption and with full continuity the broadcasts of music and meditation. I think we will succeed. We just have to dig deeply into the issue, and we are doing that. Okay, everybody, thank you. And we'll be with you, and we'll let you know this and that as we go along, and what we're going to do and what we cannot do. We'll let you know, okay? All right, many blessings and lots of love from all of us, and we'll be in touch, right? Okay, hang in there. See you later. Bye-bye.